Drew Bledsoe, for 15 years in the NFL, number 1 overall pick. So, listen, I know that you love Robert Kraft and you have respect for the organization. I get it. But I don't like, in a second-year quarterback, a defensive coordinator calling the plays. You can go back to your college and high school career, Drew, I bet the coaches you had that were offensive coaches, there was a, kind of a like, it's a boys club. They know your language, you know theirs. I don't like a defensive coordinator calling plays. What's your make of it?
Well, first of all, I had all defensive head coaches, Colin, which, man, in retrospect, man, it'd been fun to have an offensive guy as the head man just one time, Parcells and Pete Carroll and Belichick. But there are a few things about Matt. First of all, the guy's brilliant. I think like a rocket scientist or something like that before he came into football. So if there's anybody that can make that change, he's a guy that can do it. There are also a couple of advantages that a guy like Matt Patricia has. Number one, if you've been the defensive play caller, you've sort of been behind enemy lines. You know how a defensive coordinator approaches you. So that can be an advantage if you look at it that way. And then the other thing is the fact that he's been a head coach. When you look at the way that the Patriots try to play football, it's complementary. It's all three phases complementing each other. And so having that more kind of holistic approach to how he calls plays, I think can be an advantage. Remains to be seen, though, of course.
It's the quarterback position is really, really good now. And it's really, really fun. You know the Seahawks very well. Pete is going to, and I think it's probably the right move. They went and got a couple tackles. They went and got Kenneth Walker. They're like building this puppy up. They signed DK Metcalf. They're building this puppy up for the quarterback they bring in next year. But here's the thing, Drew. It is easy to say, you know what, we're going to go 3-14. But if you're in the middle of an 8-game losing streak and you lose that locker room, you haven't been in a lot of losing teams. But probably the one or two you have, it's awful in the NFL. It's an awful experience. And I look at Pete Carroll and I think they're doing the right thing. But take me to your worst year winning-wise in the NFL. It's a lot. Media's crushing you.
It's toxic. If you're in the middle of a losing streak, and you're talking about, when you're in the NFL, you give your whole life to this thing. And your whole life is based around trying to win football games. And, you get into a locker room where you haven't won in a while. Man, it is a miserable existence. And so, and I don't think that anybody's ever planning to tank to try to get picks. But man, if you have to go through one of those, first of all, you better have a lot of, career capital built up because, you get back. I mean, Colin, I know you're best in the business at what you do, but you have a couple months of bad rating, bub, and there's somebody knocking on your door. And if you're and you know how it works in the NFL, man. It's the old saying is NFL stands for not for long. Man, you go lose a bunch of games, and all of a sudden you're on the hot seat, no matter what the plan is.
Yeah. So, I look. One of the things, I was talking to Kevin O'Connell's the new coach of the Vikings, and he was on the Sean McVay staff. And I asked him yesterday, I said, if there's one thing, if you were drafting a quarterback and the one thing that's underrated for quarterbacks, what would it be? And he said, Colin, I wasn't an accurate thrower. He goes, it sounds ridiculous, right? I was a quarterback. He goes, but it wasn't easy for me. He goes, just throwing the ball accurately is a gift. Not every pitcher can throw strikes. Control can be very hard. And I look at this Trey Lance thing. It's not pretty. He's raw. And when I look at him aesthetically, Drew, it's not pretty. It's like Phillip Rivers wasn't pretty, but accurate. But I do wonder, because you could spin it and still could spin it today. From your winery, you could spin it. But it is hard to take somebody who's not, like Joe Burrow has been throwing a good-looking football since he was 11. Can you get significantly better? Mechanics, footwork. You tell me.
Well, there's two components to it, Colin. One is what you're talking about is just mechanical accuracy. Can you just sit here and throw and hit a target over and over and over again? And one thing that you've seen recently, and a lot of these guys are working with Tom House. A lot of these guys are working with the same guy. I think he works with, like 28 of the 32 or And mechanically, you're seeing some guys that, and Josh Allen is a good example of that. He was not particularly accurate his rookie year, and he's become a very accurate passer. And I know that there's been a lot of work done to help him do that. And now he's as accurate as anybody. So that can happen. But the other component to it, Colin, this is something that I always look at with quarterbacks, is the anticipation piece. If you're an NFL quarterback, you can't wait to see a guy open and then throw the football.
Right. You've
got to throw it to where he's going to be. And you got to throw him open. In most instances, you've got to release that ball before the guy's, actually coming open. And so, you put those two things together, and those are the two components of accuracy. One is the mechanical piece, and the other is, are you anticipating? Are you throwing it to where your guy is going to be, or are you waiting to see him open? And if a quarterback gets in a situation where he has to see a guy open before he throws the football, man, you're in real trouble. That just doesn't work in the NFL.
Aaron Rodgers and Brady have both been hard on young receivers. You can go now. Aaron, it's well publicized. If you're not going to be where he wants you to be, he's not going to throw it. Well, Brady was no day at the beach. If you weren't there with Tom, that's why the Patriots have struggled drafting receivers, is Tom's really impatient at this point in his career. And so Rodgers gets crushed for it, but I think it's kind of a flaw in Brady's life, is that listen, be there or I'm not throwing it. And I look at Aaron Rodgers, and take me to your career. Aaron's older. He doesn't have the patience for you to figure out the playbook. They don't have a number one. They have 3 rookie receivers. What is a realistic timeline for a 21 or a 22-year-old kid to come into the NFL facing the best cornerbacks in the league, and really, because Cooper Kupp didn't pop until year 4. What is realistic for all these Packer rookie receivers?
Yeah, Colin, there are some very rare guys that come in, and for me, Terry Glenn was a guy that right from the first time we started working together, he was just very, very consistent. Even as a rookie, he was a guy that I could count on to be where he was supposed to be, when he was supposed to be there, and also get some separation. But for most guys, that's probably at least a year 2 thing before they really understand, and before you have that rapport with a quarterback, because, Aaron's a precision passer, just like Tommy is. And, in order for him to throw with precision, he has to know that his guy is going to be where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. And when it's not, it's hard to play quarterback if you're not positive where a guy's going to be.
Right.
And for most guys, that's at least a year 2 thing before they really develop that consistency.
Hey, by the way, you're on right now. You're in, I imagine, Walla Walla, Washington, sitting in a very leather oak chair, whatever that thing is. It looks expensive. So now tell me, in your wine season, what is this month? What is August?
This is preseason right now. We are prepping, getting ready for harvest. We'll have our first grapes coming in 2 weeks. So we're deep into the preseason game planning, putting together a plan for the year, and then we're waiting to see what Mother Nature brings us, because that's when it's game time. Then you have to think on your feet and adjust during the course of a harvest based on what the weather's doing. But yeah, this is definitely preseason kind of training camp right now, getting ready to rock.
That looks like the most beautiful place. You're staring at a vineyard right now, aren't you?
Yeah, it's quite pretty, Colin. I would tell you that it's not, but it's wine grapes like to grow in beautiful places, so that's when you go to Napa, or you go to Burgundy, you go to Italy. Wine grapes like to grow in pretty places, and so it's one of the huge benefits, one of the many huge benefits of this business. You're always surrounded by pretty things.
Drew, it's great seeing you. Doubleback wines, they're amazing. The cab's unbelievable, and it's great seeing you again, bud.
Great to see you too, Colin. I think it was Super Bowl last time we talked, so it's been a little while, but I hope it's been good for you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.